series, the final installment of our series, 30-Second Theology, where we've been talking about how when advertisers nail it, they often get it wrong. And so we've looked at some marketing slogans that brands have used. We started week number 1 talking about the idea of obey your thirst, a pretty significant theme for Sprite. And we talked about how that's not a big deal when it comes just to lemon sugary drinks, but when we adopt that as a lifestyle, obeying your thirst can get us into issues. We looked at a guy in Genesis 25 named Esau who traded in a birthright, his family finances and future authority within the family, traded in for a bowl of stew. And so we talked about the idea of don't give up your preferred future for just to obey a simple thirst. Don't give up those things that are in the future. Look at what's at stake when it comes to our thirsts and appetites and desires. Week number 2, we looked at a common one used by Las Vegas. It's what happens here stays here. And it's the idea that I can do whatever I want, and when I leave that place, I leave that all behind, and I leave all those consequences behind. It's possible to hide what I've done. And we looked at the reality that concealment cannot cancel consequences. Didn't happen for King David. He had to deal with the consequences, and King David is the one that ultimately confessed his sin. And so we talked about the idea that the pain of exposing your sin isn't near as great as the damage that your unconfessed sin causes to your relationship with God. Last week we kind of changed gears a little bit, and we talked about this slogan that's used by Capital One of what's in your wallet. And the idea is that if you have the right credit card, bank card, then life is going to go smoothly. You're going to have what you want, what you need. But taken to the extreme, it also says that that's what's important, that my stuff, my money, the things that I own, my possessions will make me happy, and that could not be farther from the truth, because the Bible tells us that the chief competitor of your devotion to God is what's in your wallet, the things that you own. They can become a distraction. They can divert us from our pursuit of God. So we're going to finish this up with one that is pretty common. It is done by Lowe's, and it is never stop improving. You've heard the commercial. You've seen their slogan, never stop improving. And it has caused kind of a phenomenon and been a part of, I guess, fueled that home improvement kind of mentality that has swept our country over the last couple of decades, where people say, I can do it myself, and I can make my house better, and I can make it bigger. I can contribute to that. And it's caused lots of people to be able to live in more comfort and to have nicer amenities and to fix up things and to free up money for even more things. And so many of you, like me, have walked into Lowe's or to some kind of home improvement store, and you spend way too much time looking through there and dreaming and hoping and thinking and scheming of things that you would like to do. My daughter Kimber, she hates to go to Lowe's. She doesn't like it. She always asks if we're going there. She'd just rather stay at home. She doesn't like going. But most men, I know it's not just a man thing, but there is certainly a manly thing to going to the home improvement store and looking through things. We like that idea, and we can honestly get caught up and consumed with not just in our home, but the whole idea of upgrading and upscaling and fixing up, and this whole idea of more and better. We don't just do it with our homes. It happens with our cars. We want a better car. We want better stuff. Doesn't just happen, though, with possessions, because we want our kids to go to a better school. And listen, it can even happen because I've had people tell me they want to get involved in a better church. Not only are they upgrading their home and maybe upgrading their job and maybe upgrading their kids' school, but they're upgrading their church. It's a mentality, it's a philosophy, it's a theology to life. Never stop improving. And honestly, part of it goes back to what we talked about last week, that what's in your wallet will make you happy. And the corollary to that then must be the more that's in your wallet, the more happy you will be. The more you have, the more you will be. And again, we're talking about more than just money, but it's our desire to have more and better. The problem is that more never satisfies. More never makes us happy. More often, we never get to that point where we like, I've got enough. This is all that I need. If I were to ask you, how much more would you need to make? How much more would you need to be happy, to be at peace, to feel secure? The answer for all of us would be more than I currently have. And so the issue is this idea of more. The danger to something like never stop improving in that attitude is it basically gives permission to our appetites. You know, those things that never are satisfied, the things that Satan has distorted, it gives permission to our appetite. Instead of keeping them in check, what it does is it gives them a green light. Instead of holding it back, it just releases it. And so let's be honest here. Improving, never stop improving, it can just be a polite term for greed. That's what greed is. It's just the desire for more and better. And while it's predominantly financial in nature, it can be more than that. It can be more than just money. But certainly the things that money can buy, the houses and the remodels and the nicer cars and the next gadget, but it can be less tangible as well. It can be the improvements and the upgrades to people and relationships and things we're involved in. Andrea and I certainly have felt that tension recently. We just moved into a new house after over 23 years in the same house. And you get this idea that if we can just move into that house, then we're going to be good. It's such a nicer situation for us. And we don't need the bedrooms. We're in a different season in life. And we're going to have some things that we've never had before. And if we could just be in there, then we'd be happy. Then we'd be good. But you get into the house and you go, if we just had that piece of furniture there, and if we could just do that to that piece of the house, and if we could just add that, and if we could just get that, it never stops for us, and it's called greed. And Jesus told a story in Luke chapter 12. If you've got your Bible, I want you to turn there, or if you can read along in some fashion, I want you to see where Jesus tells this story to someone who is consumed with the more and better mentality. And the story, in fact, is peculiar because it's the only occasion when God is going to call an individual a fool. Look at Luke chapter 12, verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." So somebody's got a question for Jesus, or actually wants Jesus to do something. He wants to tell his brother to divide the inheritance. The good thing about my brother Harold and I is that we grew up in a preacher's family, and we'll never have to argue over an inheritance because of that, and because our parents lived frugal lives and gave away lots. That will never be a part of ours. But this particular family, specifically these brothers, are fighting over their inheritance. Now, I'm thinking if I've got one shot to talk to Jesus, if I've got one chance at this, I'm not going to ask Jesus a question that basically says, "I'm greedy, I want more." I would want Jesus to say something back to me like, "Hey, good job," or "Hey, I never thought about that before." That's the kind of response that I would want from Jesus, but that's not what takes place. And when Jesus tells a story after you've asked a question or talked to him, you know there's a problem. This man wants Jesus to settle a legal matter. But Jesus is going to refuse to get involved because he knew that there was no answer that would solve the real problem here. He knew that this was a heart issue on the part of these two brothers. And as long as they were both consumed with the idea of more, of never stop improving, that no settlement would really be satisfactory for them. Their greatest need was to have their hearts changed. And so he's going to approach it from that standpoint. So Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me as judge or arbitrator between you?" Then he said, "Watch out, be on your guard." Anytime Jesus tells us to watch out, be on our guard, we probably ought to pay attention. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. I've highlighted that word greed there for us because I want us to look at it a little more in depth. It is actually a compound Greek word. That means two words have been put together, and the two words are literally this: have more. That's what makes up this word right here. Watch out, be on guard against all kinds of having more, of this greed. Greed is an insatiable desire and lust to have more and more. Greed says, I want more. It says, never stop improving. It's the constant thinking of, scheming toward, planning on how to acquire more. And Jesus is saying, be careful, watch out, be on your guard. Now, there used to be some pretty common protections for us. There was some guardrails for us when it came to our greed. One of those is you used to run out of money. If you were greedy, you would eventually come to the end of your accounts, to the end of your money, and you would have to stop. That's not necessarily the case anymore because now credit lets us spend more money than we actually make. And so when you run out of money, you don't have to be done being greedy. You can continue to be greedy and maybe till you've maxed out your credit. Then everything's going to fall apart. So there used to be a limit to that, and now it just continues. The other thing that kept people from being greedy, or at least was a preventative measure, is that you used to get a reputation. You used to be called things like materialistic. Greed used to be talked about as a vice, as something to be avoided. But for many now in our culture, it is almost paraded as a virtue, a sign of being ambitious, a sign of being highly motivated. Of course, it's not called greed. We talk of it in terms of fulfilling goals and having nice things. We call it an appreciation for quality and having good taste. We have other terms for it. You call it whatever you want, but greed says, I want more than my fair share. I want more than my fair share of stuff. It always holds this unkeepable promise that if I can just get more, then I will be satisfied. If I'll just have a little more, then I'll stop. But a little more never satisfies. There's always one more deal, one more car, one more check, one more house, one more suit, one more dress, one more boat, one more jet ski, one more home furnishing. There's always an additional thing. And that's what Jesus is warning us about, this thing of have more. I must have more. So in response to that, Jesus told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Now I want you to notice what caused this rich man to have the additional crops. I know he probably had somebody plant the fields, but I also want you to know that this man did not work hard to produce a good crop. It was the laws of nature that God put into place. The blessing of this good crop was from God. It wasn't from this man's wisdom. It wasn't from his planning. It wasn't from his hard work. It was God that causes this field to produce a good crop. It's a little easy to fall into a trap like that, isn't it? That trap that says it's about me and I caused it and I got me to this point. I put in the hours. I earned my living. I worked hard to get here. But honestly, who gave you those abilities? Who gave you your life? Who gave you that kind of aptitude? Who gave you that work hard ethic? Those are all things that came from God, and this man forgot all about God's part in this. It goes on in the parable, and so this rich man says, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. Notice the bigger, better, improvement, upgrade mentality right here. I'll just build bigger barns, and there I'll store my surplus grain. I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. So this rich man, he kept improving. He kept building. He built bigger barns. He upgraded. He increased. He enlarged. And he accumulated all of these possessions so that he could take life easy. So descriptive of the American dream, isn't it? That you can work hard and that you can accumulate and that one day then you can retire and you can enjoy the fruits of your labor and you can take life easy. Sounds just like what many of us aspire to, more and better, so we can enjoy more and better. Listen, this guy, we're never told, is a bad guy. We maybe look at him as a little bit like he's selfish, and certainly that is probably not a wrong idea about him, but we're never told he's a bad guy. He may have attended synagogue, he may have tithed, he may have looked like any other good person, but obviously there's something wrong in the way that he is approaching this, and God's going to have some stern words for him. God says to him, "You fool." Only story where God himself calls an individual a fool. "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself, what you've upgraded for yourself, what you've created more and better for? Who will get what you prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." He had improved and he had increased, but he was a fool because he wasn't rich toward God. And God says, your life's going to be taken because you can't take this stuff with you. Listen, here's the lesson that I get from this story Jesus tells. Don't let the pursuit of more and better in this world prevent you from experiencing most and best. We're in a culture now that holds high this idea of more and better. Just pursue more and better. But it's possible that in your pursuit of more and better, you might miss out on most and best. You might miss out on what God has in store. And God says one of those things is being rich towards God, being rich toward Him, not just being rich toward yourself. It can work against you if you're always pursuing more and better. It can work against you having a more and better relationship with God. It can stifle your desire for more of God. So one of the questions that I have before we move on is, how does this never stop improving mentality that this rich man had and many in our culture have, how does it trap us? How does it get a hold of us? How does it manage us? I can think of a couple of reasons. One of those is competition and comparison. That's exactly what takes place for us. In fact, at the very beginning of the story, before Jesus told the story, he's talking to a man who says, "Tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Even though these guys were brothers, they were afraid that one might get more than the other, that they might miss out, that they would get more than they would. So it's this competition, comparison thing. It's even an expectation in our society. We have a term for it. We call it keeping up with the Joneses. It's this whole comparison thing with the people around us. You know, there's been an annual survey that's been taking place every year that asks Americans this simple question, that if they were happy, and they just respond to that, if you are happy. And today, with all the conveniences that we have, with all the good things, the bigger houses that we have, more means of communication and staying in touch with people, more than ever before, we are not at the happiest time in American history. In fact, if we go back and look at it, the highest points of the survey were back in 1957. Over 50 years ago now, more people said they were the happiest. So in response to this survey, a New York psychologist said people's entire orientation as to how they're doing is based on comparison. Based on comparison. That's why as a society grows, people don't feel any better because they're in the same relative position as everyone else. There's a sense of being, he says, on an endless treadmill and never getting to be where you thought you were going to be because of competition and comparison. It traps us. It keeps us in this never stop improving mindset. Of course, one that we would understand is this idea of selfishness. Did you notice how many times the rich man said, I, me, my, myself, I will build bigger barn, I will take it easy? Multiple times there in that parable. Even though he already possesses more than enough, he still can only think of himself and acquiring more. We're warned about that in Ecclesiastes 5:10. Whoever loves money never has money enough. One of the other things that traps us here is worry and fear. We get into a never stop improving mindset, a greed mindset, because of our worry and fear. Greed makes you feel like you don't have enough. And it causes you to live life and make financial decisions based upon fear. What if they break my stuff? What if they lose my stuff? What if they scratch my stuff? I'm worried about it. I'm afraid. What if I don't have enough to pay the bills? What if God doesn't provide like He says He would? What if I lose my job? What if we lose the house? And so we start making decisions based upon those fears. I better hold on. I better hoard. I better grab more. I better get more. I better prepare more. And what God would say is, don't let the pursuit of more and better in this world prevent you from experiencing most and best. See, the root issue isn't our improvement. The root issue is our dependence upon God. Improvement, never stop improving. It says, I can do it. I can fix it. I'll handle it. But dependence says, I can't fix it. I can't do it. Listen to what the writer of Hebrews said in this matter. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Notice the word content, being content. We don't like to talk about that word, but it's the opposite of greed. Greed says, I want more. Content says, I don't need more. I'm satisfied. I'm good with where I'm at. I don't have to pursue more. I don't have to get caught in that trap of always wanting more. But notice what the writer says is we are able to get beyond that because we recognize God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you, because God is with me. And so one of the things that I realize is that never stop improving makes it harder to depend upon God. If I'm dependent upon myself, if I'm depending on what I can do next and how I can increase and upgrade and all that, if I can better myself, put myself in a better position, it's possible that you could do so well in life that, well, you think you don't need God. You've got a pantry full of food, and if that's not enough, you've got a freezer in the garage that's got plenty of food. And so not only do we think we don't need enough, but we're teaching our kids that you really don't need God. You don't need to depend upon God because we plan so well and we have what we need. And if something happens, we've got insurance to cover those things. Never stop improving also leaves you distracted. That's one of the consequences of this idea and this mentality, because you get so busy improving and fixing and doing that you might miss church. Or you might not be able to go on the mission trip. Or you might not be able to afford it because you've spent all your money. And your kids are so busy improving their skills in whatever sport they're in that you've got to upgrade the league, the team that they're on. And it's on the other side of town and you have to drive over there multiple times a week. And then you got to go to those out-of-state tournaments because after all, your son's 9 years old and they need to do that kind of stuff. And so we've got all these things that keep us busy, all these things that we have to do, and we've got to work harder and we've got to drive more, and we just get distracted with, well, let's be honest, we get distracted with rich people problems. We get distracted with what people humorously hashtag things as first world problems. They don't deal with the issues that we deal with in the real world. They become issues that rich people deal with. And it's possible that we have upgraded ourselves into busyness and into insignificance. Never stop improving also makes life complicated. It's possible that you could upgrade yourself where you've gotten much and you've acquired so much that it just takes more of your time and more of your energy and more of your money in maintaining everything and keeping it all together. More stuff means more oversight, and so the additional cars and the boat, and you probably ought to get that out on occasion since you have it, and you've got things that you need to look over and things you need to take care of. It honestly just creates more to do. It doesn't create freedom. It creates more for you to do. And never stop improving affects your generosity, because it's possible that you could spend all that you have on upgrading you. You want to help. You wanted to be generous. You wanted to be a giver, but there's nothing left. Don't let your purpose, don't let your meaning, your goals in life, your happiness be on something that temporal. Listen, there's nothing wrong with improving. We were created with that desire, that appetite to improve. It is a God-given desire. And in fact, we have a God-given duty that was given to us at creation to be fruitful and to increase and to work the ground. The God of creation gives us the permission and the assignment of stewarding creation and improving creation. But like he does with everything, notice how Satan takes something of God and he glorifies it over God. And so we've taken this task of improving and we've made it a God. We've made it what we worship. Satan takes good things and he distorts them. That's exactly what he's done with this idea of improving and bettering. See, the problem is the objects of our improvement. We get caught up in the home improvements and the backyard kitchens and the upgrades and the spending money and doing those things. But what if we change the objects of our improvement? Instead of always improving the temporal things, we can do that some. That's all right. But what if we decided that there were better things, more significant things that needed our improvement? Instead of always improving the temporal things, what if we partnered with God and said we're going to be a part of improving eternal things? What if we used our improvement gifts to improve someone's life or to better someone's eternity or to make more disciples? We're entering into a time of year that just fans the flame to this more and better mentality. It's so easy this time of year, the holiday time, to get caught up with the gift buying and the sale shopping and the purchasing and the acquiring and the more and the better. But Jesus, at the very end of this parable, said, listen, life is more than that. Verse 23 says, life is more than food, life is more than clothes. Listen, life is more than your house and the improvements in your house. Life is more than the gifts you're going to purchase for Christmas for people and the sales that you're going to go to on Black Friday. Life is more than just that temporal stuff. And so the reminder for us from Jesus' story, don't let the pursuit of more and better in this world prevent you from experiencing most and best. Pray with me. Father, we thank you for the lesson you teach us today. And God, forgive us and forgive the culture that we live in for being so materialistic and so consumer-minded and so improvement-oriented that we're always thinking about more and better. God, forgive us for being so consumed with the fleshly and the temporal things of this world. And Father, would you help us as we, as Christians in this world, deal with that tension, living in this world and fulfilling some of those God-given desires, but God, help us to keep them in check. Thank you for the reminder to be on guard against all kinds of greed. Would you help us with that? In Jesus' name,